So picture this. It's 2015, and two of the most powerful men in tech shake hands on a blueprint for the future of artificial intelligence.
Right, a really monumental moment.
Yeah, exactly. But then years later, under oath, one of them swears that this blueprint was just, a rough pencil sketch meant to be erased and updated.
And the other guy swears it was a legally binding contract, like totally carved in stone.
Right, so who's actually telling the truth?
Yeah.
Well, legally speaking, we are never going to know.
Yeah, it's honestly the ultimate anticlimax in the legal world. I mean, you have this massive clash of titans over arguably the most consequential technology of our generation.
Oh, absolutely.
There's this agonizing buildup for months, and then poof, the entire dispute just vanishes on procedural technicality.
Just gone.
Yeah, no winner, no loser, just this really sudden silence.
And that silence is exactly where our deep dive begins today, because there's a lot hiding in there. We're actually pulling from this really brilliant piece of analysis by Aaron Rose. He's a software engineer and a tech writer.
A really insightful writer, yeah.
Seriously. He recently published an article on the Tech-Reader blog, and it's specifically for their Tech-Reader AI Digest Special Edition.
And the title of it is great.
Yeah, it really sets the agenda for us. It's called the OpenAI Trial. What was it really about? And what I love is that Aaron just completely bypasses the endless headlines about, who won or lost the Musk versus OpenAI trial.
Well, yeah, because nobody actually won on the merits of the arguments, right?
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. The mission for our deep dive today isn't to rehash a legal verdict that never even happened.
Right.
The goal here is to really dig into the massive, unresolved treasure trove of information that this trial just kind of left behind.
And it is massive. I mean, we've got sworn testimony, we have glaring contradictions, and it is all just sitting there right out in the open in the public record.
It's wild. But before we get to those specific contradictions, I feel like we need to understand the world that forged that original handshake back in 2015.
Oh, for sure. You have to understand the context.
Yeah, like why did these two completely different tech giants even team up in the first place?
Well, you really have to look at the atmosphere of the tech industry at that specific moment. Around, I'd say, 2014 and 2015, there was this palpable anxiety among tech leaders.
About, consolidation, right?
Exactly. The consolidation of artificial intelligence. Because Google had just acquired DeepMind, which at the time was arguably the leading AI research lab on the planet.
Right.
So there was this genuine sweeping fear that the development of artificial general intelligence was just going to be locked away.
Behind closed doors.
Yeah, behind the closed doors of a single publicly traded mega corporation that's driven solely by ad revenue and shareholder return.
So the counter move to that was to essentially build the anti-Google.
That was the idea, yeah.
A research laboratory that was structured purely as a nonprofit. I mean, the stated ethos was to develop AI out in the open, totally unconstrained by the need to generate a financial return.
Acting as a counterbalance to corporate monopolies.
Right. And it sounds like a beautifully simple, noble mission when you say it out loud.
It was incredibly simple on paper. But then, of course, that mission collided with the physical reality of how artificial intelligence is actually built.
Which is incredibly messy.
And expensive. Developing frontier AI, especially the large language models we see today, is not at all like writing the code for a new social media app in your college dorm room.
No, not at all.
It requires just a staggering amount of physical infrastructure. We are talking about compute.
Yeah. And actually, let me just break down what compute actually means in this context for you guys, because it is literally the engine driving this entire conflict.
It's the core of the whole issue.
Right. So compute refers to the raw processing power required to train an AI model. You need thousands of these highly specialized graphics processing units, or GPUs.
And you can't just buy a few of them?
No, you have to wire them together in these massive server farms, and then you have to run them at maximum capacity for months at a time just to train a single model.
It's mind-boggling.
It is. The electricity bill alone is astronomical, let alone the hardware costs. And, that's before you even factor in the human element.
Which is just as expensive, honestly. Back in 2015, there were maybe, a few hundred people on Earth with the mathematical and engineering expertise to push this specific field forward.
If that.
Right. So to poach those researchers from places like Google or Meta, a pure nonprofit basically relies heavily on idealism.
And idealism doesn't always pay the bills.
Exactly. Idealism doesn't always compete with multi-million-dollar compensation packages.
Which brings us right to the brick wall this nonprofit hit. They realized pretty quickly that to achieve their mission of building safe, open AI, They needed billions of dollars.
Millions just weren't going to cut it anymore.
Right. And you cannot raise billions of dollars from philanthropic donations alone to go buy server farms. It just doesn't happen.
It's an impossible economic reality.
Yeah. So this economic reality becomes the pressure cooker that eventually shattered that original 2015 handshake.
And that shattering is exactly what led to the lawsuit. Fast forward to the trial, and the whole discovery process just forces all these internal communications out into the light.
The private texts, the foundational agreements.
All of it. And this is what Aaron Rose refers to in his article as an accidental archive.
Okay, wait, I'm stuck on something here, though. Let me play devil's advocate.
Sure.
If the judge tossed this case because, like we said, a procedural clock expired, doesn't all this paperwork just become legally irrelevant?
Well,
Like, why are we digging through the trash bin of a dismissed lawsuit? It feels almost like finding a time capsule from a pivotal moment in history, but we're reading a novel where the author ripped out the last chapter.
Yeah.
Why should anyone care about a discarded legal filing?
I get that, but you have to remember the distinction between legal relevance and historical reality.
Okay.
The court didn't look at the evidence and declare, this claim is a lie and this claim is the truth.
Right.
The judge simply looked at the timeline and said, we aren't going to evaluate this at all.
Because the clock ran out.
Exactly. Therefore, the court never actually answered the substantive questions that everyone cares about.
Right. All the big stuff.
The questions about the original mission, how the nonprofit operated, the realities of their pivot to a for-profit model later on, and ultimately, who controls the technology.
Wow. Okay, yeah.
The legal case itself evaporated, sure, but the testimony stayed. It is sworn under penalty of perjury.
Oh, wow. It's a permanent snapshot.
Yes, exactly.
And Aaron Rose makes a really fascinating point about the timing of this snapshot. He notes that this archive was captured, and I quote, before the narratives could harden into memoir.
That is such a great line.
It really stuck with me, too.
Yeah.
Because usually, the history of a pivotal tech breakthrough is written 20 years later in some polished autobiography.
Oh, always.
The founder looks back through the lens of immense wealth and success and claims it was all this flawless execution of a grand vision from day one.
Yeah, the benefit of hindsight always buffs out the rough edges. Corporate histories are so heavily edited by PR departments.
But this archive totally bypasses all of that. We have 3 full weeks of grueling depositions.
We have really aggressive cross-examinations.
Yes. We are reading raw, real-time emails written during actual moments of panic over funding. We are seeing the messy, contradictory reality of a frontier AI lab during its most formative years, basically dragged out into the open by court mandate.
And what's fascinating here is the sheer scale of the contradiction preserved in those documents.
That's not just minor details.
Not at all. When you synthesize the sworn testimonies, you don't find a unified narrative with a few minor disagreements about a timeline. You find 2 fundamentally opposed realities.
Right.
Realities that simply cannot coexist logically, yet there they are sitting side by side in the legal record.
Here's where it gets really interesting, folks, because the source material lays out these 2 completely incompatible origin stories.
Completely incompatible.
And just to be absolutely clear up front, our goal today is not to declare who is telling the truth.
Right, we are remaining totally impartial here.
Exactly. We are simply examining the fault lines that exist in the documents. So first up, we have Sam Altman's testimony.
Okay.
Under oath, he testified that the nonprofit structure was inherently designed to be flexible. The narrative here is that the nonprofit was just a starting point, right? A vessel meant to evolve as the physical and economic landscape of artificial intelligence evolved.
Right, and this is the perspective of pragmatic adaptation.
Yeah.
If the goal is to build safe artificial general intelligence, and suddenly you realize the required compute is going to cost billions instead of millions.
Have to pivot.
Exactly. The structure must adapt to secure that funding, or the whole mission fails completely.
But then you look at Elon Musk's testimony, which was also delivered under oath.
Right.
He testified that the nonprofit mission was fixed. It was an explicit foundational mandate.
No flexibility.
None. In his sworn account, any pivot away from that strict open-source nonprofit structure was a direct violation of the original agreement. He basically argued that the structure wasn't just a vessel. The structure was the entire point of the endeavor.
And in Aaron Rose's analysis, he really emphasizes that these testimonies don't align, like they don't even rhyme.
No, they are miles apart.
They describe the exact same meetings, they look at the exact same documents, and they share the same goals, but they arrive at mutually exclusive conclusions about the very DNA of the company.
Let me try to visualize just how deep this divide actually is for you guys. It's like, imagine you have two master architects standing in front of a massive skyscraper they designed together.
Okay, I like this.
You hand them the exact same piece of paper containing the original blueprint for the foundation.
Right.
The first architect looks at it and swears, under oath, this was just a rough sketch drawn in pencil. We always knew we were going to erase parts of it and pour new concrete as the building got taller and required more support.
Which perfectly aligns with the reality of unexpected engineering challenges.
Exactly. But then the second architect looks at that exact same piece of paper and swears, no, this was a legally binding contract carved into stone. We agreed the foundation would never change, and by adding these new, massive concrete pillars to support heavier floors, you have ruined the integrity of the entire project.
That captures the structural dissonance perfectly. It really does.
It's crazy, right?
It is. And again, maintaining our neutrality here, the incredible outcome of the case being dismissed is that neither architect's claim was validated or invalidated.
Nothing was settled.
Nothing. The pencil sketch and the stone carving both exist simultaneously in the permanent record. They highlight the exact stress points at the foundation of the organization without doing a single thing to resolve them.
So what does this all mean? Like, why does this specific corporate drama actually matter to you, the listener?
Right. Why should anyone care?
You might not be a lawyer, and you're probably not training language models in a giant server farm.
Probably not.
But the technology being built on top of this fractured foundation is actively writing the algorithms that run your daily life right now.
It really is.
It is shaping global economies. It's altering how we process information and redefining human-computer interaction. It is literally the highest stakes building project in the world, and the founders fundamentally disagree on what the foundation is actually made of.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, the impact is really profound.
How so?
Because the court never decided whose blueprint was accurate. The organizations just simply continued building on top of those fault lines.
They just kept going.
They had to. So we are now left dealing with the resulting entity, which Aaron Rose identifies in his piece as a capped profit hybrid.
Okay, wait. I want to dive deep into the mechanics of that specific phrase, capped profit hybrid, because honestly, it sounds like a contradiction in terms.
It does sound like an oxymoron.
It really does. Let me break down how this actually functions based on the documents in the archive.
Yeah, please do.
Imagine a Russian nesting doll. The outer shell is still the original nonprofit organization.
Right.
It has a board of directors whose only legal duty is to humanity, not to making money. But inside that shell, they built a massive for-profit engine.
Which is where the money goes.
Exactly. Investors, like Microsoft, for example, can pour billions of dollars into this internal engine to buy the compute and the talent we talked about earlier.
But those investors don't have absolute control, which is where the capped element comes into play, right?
Exactly. The returns for those investors are legally capped.
Sure.
Let's say, just as an example, the cap is set at 100 times their investment.
Okay.
If the company achieves artificial general intelligence and generates unimaginable wealth, the investors get their money back up to that cap, and every single dollar generated after that point flows back out to the nonprofit shell.
Wow. Okay.
Furthermore, the nonprofit board retains the ultimate authority. They can technically fire the CEO of the for-profit engine at a moment's notice if they feel the mission is being compromised.
It is such a wild structure. It's attempting to balance two entirely different gravitational pulls.
Yeah, totally.
On one side, you have the pull of a charitable ethos, which, depending on the sworn testimony you believe, was either a flexible guideline or a strict fixed rule.
Right.
And then on the other side, you have the massive, unavoidable gravitational pull of generating returns for investors in basically the most competitive technological arms race in human history.
It's like trying to stitch the moral compass of the Red Cross onto the aggressive capital requirements of Standard Oil.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
The tension is just baked right into the architecture. And what Karen Rose's article really drives home is that the dismissed lawsuit didn't make these tensions disappear.
Not at all.
The contradictions preserved in that accidental archive are the active, unresolved forces operating inside the company today.
Which creates this permanent ambiguity regarding corporate accountability.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right. Because when a traditional publicly traded company makes a decision, we understand the metric. They are maximizing shareholder value.
It's very straightforward.
Exactly. And when a pure nonprofit makes a decision, we measure it against their charitable charter.
Right.
But when a capped profit hybrid makes a massive decision like, releasing a much more powerful language model or altering its internal safety protocols or even forming new corporate partnerships, how do we measure it?
Man, that is the incredibly sobering reality right there. Every time this organization pushes a new update to your phone or changes the way its AI interacts with the internet, it is doing so from a structural foundation that its own founders cannot agree upon under oath.
Yeah, it's wild.
If the original promises are disputed in the legal record, there is just no baseline to hold them accountable to.
And that's the thing. The headlines all said, case dismissed, which usually signals that a story is over, right? The book is closed.
Time to move on.
Exactly. But the reality is that the book was just left wide open on the table, filled with highlighted contradictions for anyone willing to read the transcripts.
Yeah.
The legal verdict was entirely irrelevant. The permanent preservation of the conflict was the actual outcome.
That's incredibly well said. So, to summarize the core thesis we've been exploring from this special edition of the Tech Reader AI Digest, the ultimate legacy of this trial wasn't a clean legal resolution.
No, it wasn't.
It was the creation of an accidental archive that permanently preserves multiple, completely incompatible origin stories.
We have the flexible foundation narrative clashing directly with the fifth mission narrative.
Right. Neither is legally validated, and neither is legally dismissed. They just sit there, side by side, forming the incredibly complex, unresolved DNA of a company that is actively building the future of our technology.
And this raises a really vital question, and it's something for you to mull over as you watch the space evolve.
I love this. What is it?
We now know that this multi-billion-dollar frontier AI lab operates as a capped profit hybrid. We know, thanks to this archive, that it has built atop sworn testimonies that contradict each other regarding its foundational mission.
Right.
So the lingering thought is this. What happens when that hybrid model faces its next inevitable crisis, or its next necessary evolutionary pivot?
Oh, wow.
If the legal system couldn't untangle the past, who will be able to hold the narrative accountable in the future?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question right there. Because if the architects can't agree on whether the foundation is made of pencil sketches or stone, how do we know the building will hold when the next storm hits?
We don't.
We really don't. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep looking past the headlines, keep questioning the structures of the technology you use every single day, and remember that sometimes the most important part of a trial isn't the verdict, it's the evidence left behind.